Without a shadow of a doubt, the biggest trend in cruising right now is not cruise ships, but private islands. And every cruise line, it seems, is doubling and tripling down on its private destinations because they're real moneymakers, number one, and guest satisfaction generators, number two. And you can make the argument that which should really be priority one or priority two. But the bottom line is they're very popular and they're undergoing a major renaissance. The days of going to private islands in which there was a slab of beach, maybe an umbrella, and hot dogs and burgers seem to be mostly behind us, although some of the aging private destinations still have that. Nonetheless, I wanted to talk about this trend. And I was actually checking out some YouTube videos out there, as I usually do in each evening. And I came across my favorite channels, which is Life Well Cruised. And Ilana Shattower did a video about ranking the private islands. And I'm not just having Ilana on because she did rank Coco Key as number one. I mean, she passed the test, obviously, but I really thought this was a perfect excuse to talk with Alana on here. I've known Alana for a couple of years now. We've gone to some events together, but this is an opportunity to talk about this hot trend and, of course, why Coco Key is amazing. But Ilana, welcome to the World Blog podcast.
Oh, thanks so much. I'm happy to be here.
Of course, like me, you've been cruising a lot, and you've seen this trend, this shift, if you will, from, as I mentioned in the beginning, where private islands really went just from, beachfront day to almost theme park level activities. What has been are you in favor of this trend? Do you like where this has been going? What's your kind of take on where we are in the private destination market currently for cruise ships?
Yeah, overall, I like it actually. I mean, it's not every destination that's a private island. So I do think times have changed. I actually do remember going to Coco Cay in 2008. I have some pictures. They not on social media because I had no cell phone at the time that took pictures. But it was like you said, it was like a slab of beach. I mean, it was nice. It was fun. It was like a perfect beach day, but times have changed. So I do think having more activities, more variety, and one of the things that I do like about Coco Cay is they do have quite a lot of things. So whether every private island needs to be theme park like, I don't think so. But I do think overall it's good to have choice.
Yeah, the choice is really, I think, the most important thing, Ilana, because I feel like when you talk about the reason why I like what Perfect Day has done, I think what resonates with people is that we all have in our mind a slightly different version of what our perfect day, lowercase p and d, look
Oh
like.
yeah.
And I think that back in the day, when you went to a private island, and I remember Coco Key was, I remember probably, I am certain I lambasted Coco Key as being, I didn't like it because it required a tender. And then you got
Yes.
there and there just wasn't a lot going on. I personally prefer a pool over a beach. There are other people that prefer a beach over a pool. There are other people that want to do thrilling activities and adults only and whatnot. And I feel like this is the cruise line recognizing. I think they went into it with one expectation, like, hey, let's just jazz it up and add a couple new venues here. But they realized, quite frankly, that they by offering more experiences that can be varied, I feel like that appeals to everybody's needs, and it just, like I said earlier, that leads to higher guest satisfaction because, again, to your point, it doesn't have to be a theme park. It just needs to offer something more than, what I would call a one-trick pony. Do you kind of agree with that?
I do. Overall, and I think that your point about tendering, that is a huge difference because early on, all the private islands, to my knowledge,
Yeah.
were all tenders. And now I kind of feel like I'm over tendering, maybe just because, we've so many places are not tender ports anymore.
Yep.
So to me, that actually, speaking of the video, that was one of the things that I really factored in was do you have to tender or not? Because I find with these mega cruise ships that when you are tendering, it becomes more of a process and I don't know, it's less enjoyable.
Yeah. So what's interesting, I wanted to kind of go through your rankings here because you ranked seven different islands. And there are a couple of questions I had for you. First and foremost, let's settle a debate right here, right now. Is Celebration Key a private island?
No, it is not. And I did say that in the video. It is an exclusive destination.
Okay.
And we were told that, by the way, because I was recently on Carnival Vista and we were the first passengers to be able to visit Celebration Key. So we were told that verbiage that it's an exclusive destination. So that's the word I'm going to use. But I did include it in the video because let's face it, I think we think of it that way. And, I think even Carnival wants it to be their destination slash not private island, but you know what I mean.
Yeah. No, 100%. I did a hot take podcast about Celebration Key. I didn't know anything about it other than I just
Oh, I listened to it. It was really good.
thank you. But a lot of my audience were like, it's not a private island, Matt. And I'm like, really? Because it looks like a private island. I mean, I think Royal Caribbean has this problem with its new beach club where, it's different enough from Perfect Day and Labadee that it's to me, it's a shore excursion. They don't want to call it that because I think they think it demeans the product. But if you don't call it a shore excursion, then I think people just assume and they kind of label it or group it together rather, right, with private islands, and it's totally different experience. I'm wondering if Celebration Key has a similar issue, or you think this is purely marketing.
Maybe it's similar. I guess I don't know enough about the new destinations that Royal Caribbean have coming out. I've, seen a little bit about it, but I haven't looked very closely to know what is included and what's not. But you have to always pay for those, right?
Yep,
Like,
absolutely.
okay, so they are different than Celebration Key. I would say Celebration Key, and I did a video about it, but to me it feels like a hybrid of a private island and
Yeah.
I guess just a destination. It is kind of cool. They're to their credit, what they've done with Celebration Key is they do have a partnership
Hmm.
with Freeport. And so the part about the food not being completely included, everybody gets like a meal voucher for one casual meal, which I think is what a lot of people don't like about Celebration Key.
Yep.
But apparently those food trucks, is actually like local people are working there, local businesses are partnering. So there is that element, and I ended up having the fish tacos, and they were really good. It didn't taste like typical barbecue, like that barbecue buffet. That
Absolutely.
was good. So, I mean, I think it is what it is. It's still a free day overall to be able to use all of the amenities for anybody who doesn't want to pay for a cabana, just like on any other island. And, you get one meal included. You don't get unlimited food, but you can walk right back to the ship because it is not a tender port.
So in your rankings, you have, if I'm not mistaken, Half Moon Key and Great Stirrup Cay as at your bottom of your list. Now, that's changing a little bit, right? Because now I'll show how little I know about Norwegian, but they just announced some changes coming to their private islands. But is it basically you're seeing in its current state today here in 2025 that NCL's private island game is lacking a little bit?
Okay, so my lowest ranking was actually Princess K's, even though I love Princess. I'm like a princess girl. But I just think that they haven't updated their island in a while, to my knowledge.
Mhm.
And it's a tender port, so I don't love that. And it's
Yep.
basically, like you said, it's a simple stretch of beach. And some people love that. So it's just my opinion.
Yeah.
But it does include the drink package, which is really good. And it includes Wi-Fi. And then after that, yeah, Stirrup Key, Great Stirrup Key. It's beautiful. It's got a lot going for it. And I think very soon it might be like, I think it's going to be a main competitor to Royal Caribbean. We'll see, but it looks pretty fantastic. We just need to see what's included and what's not, which hasn't been completely, to my knowledge, hasn't been completely shared.
Mhm.
But I think that's going to be a good one. And then Half Moon Key, I think it's really beautiful. It's actually, I do like it, but it's just very simple.
Yep.
So, and it's a tender port. For me, the tender port, it's like a huge thing for me. And also at Half Moon Key, if you have a drink package on the cruise ship, it also does not work on the island. So that was a little bit of a factor.
Yeah, I feel like, there's certain things that once you experience it on someone else's private island, it
Yeah.
ruins it for the islands that don't have like piers now. If you don't have a private island that has a pier, I agree with you. That is like, I mean, that's gonna send it almost immediately to the bottom. It's like, it's one of those trends that like again, 10, 15 years ago we wouldn't have cared because it was pretty rare to have it. But now when you have it, it's just a difference maker. So you've got that the food upgrades, right? I'm getting the sense that these are the things that really mean a lot to you, and I think you're right on it, quite frankly. That you need to have more than burgers and hot dogs. If it's a private island, it should be somewhat of an extension of the ship, right? In terms of certain programs like a drink package, like the Wi-Fi being extended there, because it's a continuation of the cruise experience. That certainly lends itself towards, I think, your rankings appearing higher on your rankings, I should say. Is that fair to say with your methodology and how you're looking at these things?
Yeah, yeah, for sure. At least for me. And that was one of the things like Coco K. really, between the buffet that I actually think is really good. I think I did mention that I think the multiple buffets, but I think that they might be the absolute best that I've seen. But they also have like those food snack shacks, I guess it is. But I had Greek salad on the island. Like that was really good, and like chicken burgers, and there was soft ice cream there. It was just so plentiful.
Hmm. Absolutely. I mean, I love the food
Anyway,
there.
I'm talking to Royal Caribbean blogs. Of course, you're like, yeah.
Listen, I love the food. I think it's so understated how good the food is at Perfect Day. And I remember in subsequent visits I've been to Labadee where it is still burgers and hot dogs, and it's like, ugh, I guess I'm gonna wait to get back on the ship to eat lunch. It's just like I just can't do it anymore, you know? It's just there's something about that. Like I love the buffet at Chill Grill and Skipper Grill because I treat it like Chipotle. I grab a bowl, I load it up with it's mostly for the taco, make your own tacos. I just skip the tacos to make a bowl. But I love that, right? But you also have, of course, burgers and hot dogs. Obviously, you have chicken, you have salads, you have sandwiches. I like that the variety really does stand out. And let's jump right to Coco Key because obviously, as a fanboy here, I mean, it made number one on your list. I mean, it is still I'm going to say it's still the de facto standard that every private island experience is trying to emulate or reach at this point. I think Perfect Day Mexico will be a further jump, but we'll talk about that in a future episode. I'll have you on. But as it stands now, I mean, I think the contenders to Coco Key, because I'm assuming our audience knows a lot about this. We don't need to, necessarily delve into every detail about it. But it seems like the contenders for Coco to rival Coco Key to me, and it's interesting. Celebration Key was one of them. I thought. I feel like the luster fell off that pretty quickly with some of the issues we talked about already. Maybe that'll change in the future. Um, Disney's Lighthouse Key, which I don't even think was on your list, although you might not have been there yet. Is that the reason why it wasn't
Yeah,
on?
and I mentioned that towards the end of my video.
Mhm.
So, but I've actually not cruised with Disney, and just by circumstance, not because I don't like Disney, but I
Yep.
first cruised with Royal Caribbean when my kids were young, and then we stuck with Royal Caribbean the way a lot of people do. You stay with the same line, and I feel like we grew out of the window of time that it would have been a great family cruise line for us, Disney. So I haven't tried it, and you know what? They haven't invited me on board, and I've been super busy, so I just haven't. But I'm sure that they have a great private island. I've heard really good things.
Yeah, yeah. So the one let's talk about I guess the island that almost made it or came in number two, which is I believe Virgin's club at Bimini. Is that correct?
Yeah, that is neat. Did that come in number two? I wasn't sure. I thought it was maybe Ocean Key, but maybe it was Bimini. Maybe it was Bimini. I
If
feel
I'm
like it was the Ocean Key.
Yeah.
Maybe
Well,
they were tied.
it's high. So
They were,
what?
yeah, the MSC Ocean Key,
Mhm.
Bimini were kind of tied. I think that Bimini is like it's flying under the radar.
Okay. So what is it lacking? What are each of those lacking? MSC's and Virgin's Islands to that basically keeps it below Coco Key, if you will.
Okay. So, just briefly about Virgin's Bimini. First of all, that isn't a private island, definitely, but I still included it because it is like their experience. But it is pretty cool because they rent out Resorts World, and I think they rent it out or they lease whatever they do, but they do really make it their own. Because I was there with Holland America one time when it was just called Bimini, and you went, and the experience was completely different with Virgin, and it really did feel like a beach club, almost like in Europe. They've got these beach clubs that are really like parties, and it felt that. It was definitely an adult party. The food was interesting. They're so different, Virgin. So the food was like Bahamian food, and some of it was like plantain and curry and different things. Not everybody would love it, but it was interesting. And then they have the pool, of course, because they've got the pool party, and they also have the beach, and it's just quite beautiful. The only, I would say, a downside to it is the fact that you have to take a tram to get over to it. So you can't just walk right onto the pier. You actually have to plan. It could take you like 30 minutes to get over to it and like 30 minutes to get back.
Okay. So kind of some of those issues there, keeping it from reaching the top, so to speak.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And MSC Ocean Key,
Mhm.
I think is interesting because it is the opposite in many ways of Coco Cay. And it actually came. when I polled my audience on Facebook, Perfect Day at Coco Cay came in number one, like by far. And then second and third place were actually Holland America's Half Moon Key and MSC's Ocean Key. And they're both so different
Hmm.
than Perfect Day. But Ocean Key, I think it is interesting that they're not trying to be Royal Caribbean's Perfect Day at Coco Cay, which I kind of think is kind of neat that they went a very opposite, at least seemingly opposite approach.
Yeah, well, especially considering that I feel like MSC copies everything else that Royal Caribbean does, so it's kind of interesting for them to do
Right,
that.
right.
Yeah, the one time they're like,
That it's so
yeah.
original.
Um, I want to ask you a bold question about private islands in general.
Uh-huh.
Is it, I wrote this down as, is it right? It's not the right word, but like spending extra on a perfect day on a private island, excuse me, whether it's Coco Key, whether it is Celebration Key, um, any private island, should, as a, like, I'm trying to frame this because the question I want to ask you is like, should you spend money on extra cost things, or are the free things good enough? You know what I mean? Like, there's always this debate that I have where, I'll review Hideaway Beach, which is the adults only area at Coco Key, and it costs money, or I'll review a cabana, and these things all cost extra. And there is a sizable portion of the viewership that I believe believes that you shouldn't spend money on anything that costs extra. That basically, number one, and to their point, and I agree with them at least on this point, the free stuff at Coco Key is good enough that you don't need to spend money. But also like more that, it's included, the island visit, thus that should be enough, if you will. What's your take on spending extra on things at a private island? Is that a must-have? Sometimes depends on the place, never. What's your outlook on that when you talk to somebody who's asking about, visiting any one of these and the decision to spend extra or not?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think actually to your point about things being included, I think of it a little bit like when you're on the cruise ship and everything you actually need is included. There's no need to spend extra on specialty dining, on a
Mhm.
drink package, maybe even Wi-Fi. But a lot of people do because it makes their cruise a little bit better for them, a little bit of a better experience. And everybody has what they need or what they think is important, maybe even a spa appointment. Let's face it, there's a free whirlpool. Why do people go to a thermal spa? So, I think of it the same way on a private island. In my opinion, a lot of it has to do with budget. If somebody has spent a fair amount on that vacation and that's what they budgeted for their vacation, then absolutely all of the included things, I personally do think Perfect Day in particular has a lot included that is good. It's a good experience. But like anybody who wants a little bit more of an upgraded experience, then why not? Like I'll tell you, cabanas do nothing for me. I just never sit in the same place.
Hmm.
So I just it doesn't have a lot of value for me.
Yeah.
Even just for me personally. So I don't think it's worth it, but that's just me. But I know other people who really enjoy that experience and it's worth it for them.
Yeah, I mean, and that's I think the most important thing. I try to convey this. It's like I understand if anybody doesn't care for something, that doesn't make it bad or wrong for somebody else to do it. It's just this is what they're trying. This is what the cruise lines are trying to do, is offer you more than just one thing. Like you can do it different ways. Some people want to. It's not so much they want to spend money, but they want to splurge in the same way that they might book a suite instead of an inside cabin, or they might book a first class ticket instead of a coach ticket because they see they're not just the value, but for them, they value the experience. They want to spend more because they want to do something special, different, exciting. Could be the water park, it could be a cabana. But I feel like number one, they're selling them. So clearly there are enough people who
Oh
want to
yeah.
book them. And number two, as long as the island is still delivering a core complimentary experience that, like in the case of Coco Key, I think it's fantastic. I mean, I tell people all the time you don't need to spend any money to have a great time there.
Yeah.
But as long as they're doing that, I don't have a problem with it. I think it'd be more the issue, when you run into a situation where truly the complimentary stuff is like subpar. But I don't even think any of these places are remotely in danger of that. I feel like they do understand that number one, from a crowd standpoint, they can't have everybody paying for everything. But number two, I think that they recognize where the market is and that there's going to be some percentage that want the upgrades, but most people still want to do the, the included thing. And I would say that it certainly rises to the level of, well, certainly good enough, but pretty darn good as well.
Yeah, I agree with you. And I think that does keep the value of cruising. So, which is good. And also to your point about perfect day at Coco Cay, I've paid for the water park before. Not that I need to go on the tallest water slide in the Caribbean.
Yeah.
But like I do have kids and they're getting older and stuff. But even like my son and my other son and my husband, they like those water slides. So, and not that we do it every time.
Yep.
I don't think there's anything wrong with it. But if somebody didn't want to do it, I think you can have an absolutely good time without it. And actually, just to mention at Celebration Key, even though they're getting a lot of flack online, I think within the cruise community, their ships are selling and people are very excited about Celebration Key. I get a lot of messages from people that are saying they're excited about it. So I don't think people should be disappointed if they're going there. I think that they just have to plan for that day, knowing that they've got that one meal included. And maybe they want to pay a little bit extra to go to a sit down restaurant where you get 25% off. It's just a different way.
Heck yeah. Well, I got to tell you, Alana, thank you so much for joining us here. If you're looking for more of her videos, check out Life Well Cruised on YouTube and, of course, lifewellcruised.com. She is, along with Sherry from Cruise Tips TV, my two go-to. I need to learn how to pack or do things more efficiently. I go to them first because they've got everything. Every time I need, we need a doohickey for a cruise or something like that. Oh, hold on. Let me check what Alana has and I'll get back to you.
I check with Sherry too all the time.
Thank you so much for joining us here, Alana.
Thanks for having me.
It is time, once again, to answer your listener emails. You can always email me your questions, matt@RoyalCaribbeanBlog.com. Our first email is from Kim from Springfield, Missouri. Hey, Matt, love listening to your blog. I have 3 questions. Our family's booked on a last cruise the end of May 26 on the Ovation out of Vancouver. The gangway uptime is 11 p.m. Should we expect dinner to be served the first night or plan to do something else for dinner before boarding the ship? Dinner will definitely be served. Normally, there's no change there. When you're on a cruise which departs very late from a port, like this happens in San Juan, Puerto Rico, or in your case, Vancouver, there's no change to that at all. Just you'll be docked for dinner, but no change at all. You should expect dinner to be served as per usual. Kim's second question is, we are also being joined on the cruise by 2 other family members for a total of 16. Do we just link our reservations in order to be seated together for dining, or do you need to call Royal Caribbean? You don't need to call Royal Caribbean. You just need to link each other's reservations to each other. So you link to them, they link to you. Pretty straightforward. When you get on board the ship, Kim, then just go down to the main dining room and verify you all have the same table reservation. Now, for 16, there's not many tables that are going to be able to accommodate that, but just double check like that. Maybe there's like a table of 8 and 8 or 10 and 6, something like that, that are next to each other, and that should be fine. Lastly, one of our stops is Icy Strait Point. There aren't a lot of excursions available. Have you sailed there before? And if so, what would you recommend in port? By far the best thing you want to do at Icy Strait Point is some sort of a whale watching tour, because it's not a very big port. It's not like Juneau, that's like a city. I think for most folks, doing whale watching is probably the number one thing to do there. There's also the Zip Rider, which is a 5,000-foot zip line. That's also very popular. You can book. All these, by the way, are pretty much you can book outside of Royal Caribbean. So you're either doing like some sort of a wildlife tour or whale watching, or probably the Zip Rider. Fishing charters are also available. Kind of depends what your interests are, but I would definitely save Icy Strait Point for whale watching. It's probably one of the better places for that, not to mention the fact there's not a whole lot else going on like outside of there. So hopefully that answers your question there, Kim. Thanks for the email. Next question is from JT. Hey, Matt. I booked a cruise on Harmony this season, January, and in anticipation of that, I've been binging your videos. I'm planning on proposing to my girlfriend halfway through, so that's really exciting. However, I have heard things about the integrity of Harmony since they're fixing it up next year, and I'm worried about this impacting our experience. Should I be worried? No, not at all. I wouldn't worry about it one bit. I've gotten this question over the years. I'm going on a certain ship. It's due for refurbishment, but I'm going on before that. Is that a problem? No. Number 1, the ship's not falling apart. Number 2, going on a cruise is better than not going on a cruise. Number 3, I wouldn't put us off your plans, especially since you're planning on proposing, which is amazing. So yeah, no, just go with the flow, man. You'll have a great time on board. JT also wrote, when we go to Cozumel, we're looking to do Chacanab and getting a day pass and swimming with dolphins, but this is not a Royal Caribbean excursion. So we would need to get a taxi to get there. I've heard countless horror stories about traveling alone in Cozumel. I was wondering if I should still be worried or if these are just rare occasions. JT, I can only tell you, I have gone to Cozumel dozens and dozens and dozens of times. I've probably been there the most of any port. And I have almost always taken taxis around there. Never had one issue. So I'm not sure about these horror stories you've heard about, but I can tell you from my own experience, I've not had a problem. I can't comment on the issues other people had. I'll simply tell you that I had no problem at all, and it doesn't even cross my mind as being an issue when I go to Cozumel. I think it's really easy. There's so many taxis around. It's probably one of the best ports for that. Finally, I booked our ocean view balcony and let Royal Caribbean pick to save money. Should I bite the bullet, pay some extra money to choose our own room? I'm worried about motion sickness by being in the very front or back of the ship. However, it's not a super big deal. It's still something that has been on my mind. You know, the last part of your comment there is kind of what leads me to believe you shouldn't worry about it. If it's not a super big deal, then don't do it. But if you're somebody who gets car sick, just by regularly, then you're super sensitive to it, that might be an issue. But I feel like generally speaking, if you're characterizing this not a super big deal, then I think you're totally fine to kind of just go with the flow, quite frankly. You're right. You could be in a cabin that's all the way forward. Actually, I booked a guarantee cabin for myself on Utopia this season, January, and I got the two choices were the cabin all the way forward or one cabin off of it. And I was like, you know what? I'm going for the cabin all the way forward for the sake of research. But I would simply tell you that, if you're not super sensitive to it, I wouldn't worry too much about it. And if nothing else, it would be a good story but bring your bow and iron just in case. JT is always a good idea. Next email is from Amanda, a tired toddler mom in the Midwest. Hey, Matt. Big fan of your podcast. I was a no way, never cruising, drop me in the woods alone sort of person. Then I had two kids and was looking for a true vacation, not just a trip. Parents out there know there's a big difference. Your podcast won me over and opened my eyes to the world of cruising. Royal Caribbean's baby splash pad and included private island destinations made for a great young family vacation. We took a February 2024 cruise on Oasis with stops at Perfect Day, Labadee, and St. Thomas. It was the ideal itinerary for us. I love that we could feel safe to get off the ship with a gaggle of little kids and not have to plan or stress over logistics. Our potty-trained toddler tore up the big kids water park, and our baby loved the splash pad. I didn't have to cook for a week. The staff was so kind and accommodating, and the kids slept like rocks every day after all the swimming, carousel riding, mini golfing, and smorgasbording fun. Now we're a family of 5. My oldest is asking when she can chomp down on escargot again. So my question is this. Does Royal Caribbean offer balcony cabins for families of 5 that are not suites? I ask because I'm budget-minded and don't want to spring for a suite or adjoining balcony rooms. Our kids aren't yet old enough to be shoved across the hall in their own interior cabin. Any ideas or insights would be great. Appreciate the work you and your team do. The thing that comes to my mind, and maybe it's because I just got off Star of the Seas, is to go on an Icon class ship. They do have cabins designed for 5 that are not suites. They're usually called the Surfside family rooms or something like that. And that would probably be your best bet, especially since your kids are on the younger side of things. When they get to, once you get to teenagers, you're going to need to get a second cabin because you don't want to be in the same room as them and or sharing the same bathroom as them. Nonetheless, I would definitely recommend the Icon classes. On other ships, this really doesn't exist. The only exception, hold on, I say that, and I just remember there is something else. On certain ships, I know this is on the Voyager, Freedom, and maybe the Oasis class too. They have these rooms called spacious family rooms. There's a couple different, they're not balconies though, Amanda. They're usually ocean view rooms. But these rooms are fantastic. They're giant rooms with bunk beds, separation for you and the kids, even the second bathroom. It depends on the ship, obviously. But these rooms are amazing, and they're great for families, and they can accommodate up to 6 people, believe it or not. Again, they usually have a title like Family Spacious, something like that, Family Spacious Ocean View, or something to that effect. When you're looking, though, you may not be able to find them on the Royal Caribbean website. Their website is not great for cabins above 4 people or so you maybe want to reach out. You should reach out to Travelation anyway, in my opinion. But, reach out to our friends at MEI Travel, Amanda, and they can help you find that kind of a room. That would also be a really good alternative there. And our last email today is coming to us from Chris. Hi, Matt. I have a cruise booked on Oasis for this year. I've been watching your videos and YouTube for the past 6 months. You give me so much helpful information. Thank you. I do have a question regarding onboard credit that you can help me with. I have $400 worth of onboard credit for my cruise. I'd like to use this for mocktails for the kids, candy, escape room, etc. I know on our SeaPass, all of us have a credit card linked. I know I can charge items using the SeaPass to our room. At the end of the trip, I should get an itemized list of all the charges during our cruise. My question is this. Will my onboard credit be applied to this bill automatically, and $400 will be taken off the top? For instance, if I charge $600 during my trip, the $400 is applied, and I'm left with a $200 bill, or to tell each bartender, store clerk, whatever, to use onboard credit. Good question. And the answer is, don't worry, you don't tell anybody anything. It's just a credit automatically. So basically, Chris, when you start off the cruise, in fact, you open up the Royal Caribbean app on day one, you will see minus $400 on your SeaPass account. And it works the first way you described it. If you spend $600 total between you and the whole family, you'll owe Royal Caribbean at the end $200, and it'll come off automatically. You don't need to specify onboard credit. You don't need to tell people, oh, I want to use my onboard credit for this. It's just a credit against your account. So exactly as you described it in scenario A, if you spend $600 in total and you have $400 onboard credit, you will simply owe $200 at the end. And it's really easy to track. Back in my day, you had to go to guest services and ask for a copy of your bill to see how much you had spent. Nowadays, with the Royal Caribbean app, it's super easy. You can see it almost instantly when something is charged and how much money is left in your account. So really, really easy to work with that. So thank you, Chris, for the email. Thank you to everybody for checking out this episode of the Royal Caribbean Blog Podcast. Really appreciate it. Thanks for listening. This has been Matt from RoyalCaribbeanBlog.com, and we'll talk again real soon.